I've got lots to share with you this week in terms of the dividend news, including 24 companies that have announced increases to their dividends, 2 who are suspending their dividends, 3 companies that have announced stock repurchase plans, 2 companies that are offering special dividends, and 1 is actually acquiring another company. And let's start right here with Universal Corporation, who has announced this week a 1.3% increase to their dividend. The forward yield is 5.97%, ex-dividend date July 7th, with a pay date on August 7th. Equitable Holdings has announced a 10% increase in their dividend, giving them a forward yield of 3.56%. The ex-dividend date is coming up on June 2nd with a pay date on June 12th. Donaldson Company Incorporated has declared an increase in their dividend by 8.7%. The forward yield is 1.59%, ex-dividend date June 6th with a pay date on June 23rd. And let me take a moment to draw your attention to the chart on the right. Here you'll find the 5-day price performance, the market cap, the forward PE, the yield from the trailing 12 months, the year-over-year revenue growth, and the short interest. Which brings us to Global Net Lease and Necessity Retail, who've announced that they are merging and will plan to internalize their management. And next, we've got Town Bank, and the ticker symbol is Town. How apropos. They've announced a dividend increase of 8.7% this week, forward yield of 4.26%, ex-dividend date towards the end of June on the 29th, with a pay date on July 14th. And here you'll see a warning from Seeking Alpha that Golden Ocean is at risk of cutting its dividend, and that's what we're here to talk about. Because they just announced a 50% decrease in their dividend. The trailing 12 months yield was actually 16.76%. It went ex-dividend on May 25th and has a pay date on June 6th. Insperity Incorporated has announced a 9.6% increase in their dividend. The forward yield is 2.02%, ex-dividend date June 7th with a pay date on June 22nd. iTurin Location has announced a 7.1% increase in their dividend. The forward yield will be 2.63%, ex-dividend June 27th with a pay date on July 12th. Quanta Services Incorporated has not changed the amount of their dividend. They have announced that the board of directors has authorized a new stock repurchase program up to $500 million that's going to run through June 30th of 2026. We've got a 2.8% increase in the dividend coming from the Bank of Montreal. Forward yield of 5.01%, ex-dividend date July 27th with a pay date on August 28th. And the Bank of Nova Scotia is also increasing their dividend, but this time by 2.9%. The forward yield is 6.38%, ex-dividend date July 3rd with a pay date on July 27th. Lots of folks talking about Zim Integrated Shipping this week as they generated a net loss and announced that they've cut their dividend to zero. Tetra Tech announced an increase in their dividend by 13%. They went ex-dividend on May 23rd with a pay date on June 6th, and they've got a dividend yield in the trailing 12 months of 0.69%. Cricket has declared a special dividend in the amount of $1 per share. The ex-dividend date is June 30th with a pay date on July 17th. Highway Holdings, ticker symbol HIHO, what does that make you think of, has announced a 100% increase in their dividend. The forward yield is 20.94%. They go ex-dividend June 23rd with a pay date on July 12th. While Dillard's has kept their dividend the same, they have announced that the company has authorized the repurchase of up to $500 million of its stock. Haverty Furniture Companies is raising their quarterly dividend by 7.1%. The forward yield is 4.56, ex-dividend date June 5th with a pay date on June 21st. And here again, Seeking Alpha is issuing a warning that Valhe Incorporated is at risk of performing badly. And along with that warning, we see that they have announced a decrease in their dividend by 12.5%. The forward yield is 2.13%, ex-dividend June 2nd with a pay date on June 20th. IDEX Corporation has announced an increase in their dividend by 6.7%, forward yield of 1.27%, ex-dividend date June 8th with a pay date on June 23rd. National Storage Affiliates has announced a 1.8% increase to their dividend. Forward yield is 6.16%. Ex-dividend date is June 14th with a pay date on June 30th. Texas Community Bank Shares is raising their quarterly dividend by 50%. The forward yield is 1.02%. Ex-dividend date is June 8th with a pay date of June 26th. Peoples has announced a 9.2% increase from their prior dividend. The forward yield is 3.53%. Ex-dividend date is June 9th with a pay date on May 24th. Flowers Foods, ticker symbol FLO, has increased their dividend by 4.5%. The forward yield is 3.54%. Ex-dividend date June 7th with a pay date on June 22nd. And here again, Seeking Alpha is giving us a warning, and this time it's for American Tower Corporation, and they're saying that they're at risk of performing badly. Yet they've just offered a 0.6% increase in their dividend. The forward yield is 3.4%, ex-dividend date June 15th with a pay date on July 10th. Unum has announced a 10.6% increase from their prior dividend, and it's expected to be paid in the third quarter of 2023. Hamilton Lane is raising their dividend by 11.3%. The forward yield is 2.67%, ex-dividend date June 14th with a pay date of July 7th. Medtronic is offering a small increase to their dividend of 1.5%. The forward yield is 3.15%, ex-dividend date June 22nd with a pay date of July 14th. The Royal Bank of Canada has announced a 2.3% increase in their dividend. Forward yield is 4.36%, ex-dividend date July 25th with a pay date of August 24th. The Canadian Imperial Bank is raising their dividend by 2.4%, ex-dividend date of June 27th with a pay date of July 28th. Weibo Corporation has announced a special dividend in the amount of 85 cents per share. This is going to go ex-dividend on June 23rd with a pay date of July 19th. And one that I was pretty excited about because I'm a shareholder is Lowe's, and they've raised their dividend by 4.8%. The forward yield is 2.19%. Ex-dividend date is July 25th with a pay date of August 9th. Canadian Western Bank is increasing their dividend by 3.1%. The forward yield is 5.24%. Ex-dividend date June 7th with a pay date of June 22nd. Stellar Bancorp, we've got another warning from Seeking Alpha that they're at risk of performing badly. Seeking Alpha notes that they've got inferior profitability and negative earnings per share revisions when compared to other financial stocks. But the board has expanded its existing share repurchase program up to $60 million. Big Lots has announced this week that they are suspending their dividend. Now, if you find all of this information helpful, I've also provided it to you in a spreadsheet that I update each week with the ticker symbol, the company name, the increase or decrease, ex-dividend and pay dates, as well as any comments about each of these announcements. I put the dividend news out every weekend, so be sure to join me. And until next week, take a peek at this video next. Hi-ho, it's off to work we go. For share. For sure. For sure. Oh, heaven. I don't know why that's making me think of the Weebles. They wobble, but they don't fall down.